Just about made it. With Larry and Andrea being out, I've volunteered to take his place this morning. We're starting the book of Numbers. So Numbers chapter 1. We still have a number of people that we want to keep in our prayers still. Sister Lisa Wright, also Sister Haney as well. Tina Tatum had some additional surgery and she's back in the hospital, and last night wasn't very good. Her sugar had dropped real low, so I definitely want to keep her in our prayers, as well as Miranda's father. He went back to the cancer clinic and got some information as far as how widespread it is, but he's going to have an MRI done as well to see if any of the cancer has spread to his brain. So I know they are definitely in desire to have our prayers. So upcoming, don't forget that we will be having our gospel meeting, door knocking as far as taking place. Grant says he doesn't think he's going to be here for Bible class according to the handout. It does say PM instead of AM. So if you take any of those, you might want to write AM instead of PM, because I doubt very seriously anyone will be here at that time of the night. So I think most of the list is signed up as far as food and other things. And so appreciate all that and the efforts that you're putting forth as far as inviting people to come. So any other people that we might need to mention as far as on our sick list? Yes, sir.
I am scheduled to see a surgeon on the 8th of next month.
October then.
October.
Okay. I don't know if, since we're so close, it seems like it's already October in some ways. So we definitely still want to keep Brother Turner in our prayers also as far as his doctor's visit. You still doing better? Huh. All right. Diane is still having some difficulty with her, so we want to keep her in our prayers. All right. Let's pray together as we begin our class. Father, we're truly thankful that as thy people we can gather together this morning in the comfort and the safety of this building, that we can openly and freely study from thy word, gain knowledge about thy nature and thy character from these Old Testament activities and accounts. We are so thankful, Father, for loving us so much that we might be saved through the blood of thy Son. We're grateful for his sacrifice, his death upon that cross, shedding of his blood so that we might be saved and have that hope. We are grateful, Father, with it that as it has purchased a church, that it also continues to allow us to be forgiven in thy sight. Father, we are mindful, prayerful about a number of people that are still having ongoing illnesses and some very difficult times for them. We offer our prayers, but Father, may we also be those that seek to do what we can in helping. Father, as we see our upcoming meeting, we pray for it. We pray for those who will be speaking. We pray for every effort that we put forth, that it will do much to increase thy kingdom, bringing honor and glory to thy name. Help us, Father, to be mindful of heaven, that we might live for thee here on this earth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, Numbers. What is the meaning behind the first book of Moses? Why is it called Genesis? All right, the beginning goes through a number of different things. What about the second book of Moses, Exodus? It's the way out. It's the way that they're going to travel as far as leaving from Egypt. And then, as we've just finished up, Leviticus. Oh, that was the closest one that we've just finished. You ought to. All right. Having to do with the Levites as far as all of their work. So many times we call it their handbook as far as the priest and the high priest and the Levites who might not be serving in that position. So no great stretch. What then do you think Numbers has to do with? Numbering the people. Both as you begin in chapter 1 and then in 26, there is the second one. And so you have, as they are at Mount Sinai, they do the first census, and then they do the second one after 38 years approximately, before they're getting ready to enter into the promised land. So they take the first one and then the second one, and then God tells them not to do it anymore. So the book of Numbers fits as far as the ones that are there. It's specific as far as who's going to be counted or polled to show the exact number, but it's quite easy to see how many people, as far as Jacob and his family, originally went down into Egypt. 70. Another place gives 72 as far as adding a couple of others within it. So you see within that time period of those 430 years that there's a great increase. Pharaoh no doubt had probably a good right to be afraid of them as far as the number and how quickly they had multiplied. That if you take the number that's going to be shown here in this book, and then say, well, if they're married, if they have a couple of kids, then it's going to be up into the millions of people that are going to be making that trip from Egypt all the way to the promised land. Chapter 1 begins much like as we saw in Exodus and also Leviticus by giving this phrase, the Lord spake unto Moses. That's one of the most important things that we can understand, that these books are a record of what God has said to Moses specifically, and then as he writes these things down for them as well. But it's God's authority that is passed to Moses, then as Aaron is his spokesman, and then to the various other ones that are also helping Moses in leading these people. So the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month in the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt. Why is it only 2 years now? When they made preparation for that first Passover as they were going to leave, God starts a new calendar with them as far as months, years go. And so this is the time period that it's been from them leaving and getting to where they are right now at Mount Sinai. And so it's now the first day, the second month, and the second year. So they've just been on the road, so to speak, a little over a year, because the second one has just started. Verse 2 tells him what he should do. Take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel after their families by the house of their fathers, and the number of the names, every male by their polls. Now, what does it mean, poll? Okay. As we would think of polling stations, voting precincts, and other things, a lot of it has to do with saying, okay, let's count the heads. And so that's polling, is when you count individual people and what they are going to be as far as within each of these. So the purpose behind it in verse 3, from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies. So there's a purpose behind saying, what's the age? 20 years old, the gender, males, and they have to be able to do what? They have to be able to fight or go to war. And so there's a purpose and reason behind it, because as they are in this wandering, they're going to come across some battles, as they did back at Rephidim when the Amalekites came and fought against them. They're going to go against the Ammonites, the Moabites, and then ultimately as they come into the land to try and conquer it. So there's a purpose behind all of these people being enlisted, so to speak, and knowing how large their army is. And they'll also use this to further emphasize where all of these tribes are encamped around the tabernacle also. All right, so verse 4 gets us into the counting of each of these. Bye, Ella. So with Aaron and Moses, he says, verse 4, there shall be a man of every tribe, every one head of the house of his fathers. So these go back to the individuals who stand in place and those who represent each one of them. Beginning in verse 5, he goes down through each of these and he counts them. And these are the names of the men that shall stand with you of the tribe of Reuben: Elizur, the son of Shedeur; second of Simeon, Shelumiel, the son of Jerushaddai. Somebody else want to read all the names? Verse 7. So Reuben and Simeon of Judah, Nahshon, the son of Amminadab; 8 of Issachar, Nethaneel, the son of Zuar; of Zebulun, Eliab, the son of Helon; 10 of the children of Joseph and Ephraim, Elishama, the son of Ammihud, of Manasseh, Gamaliel, the son of Pedahzur; 11 of Benjamin. Let me go down just a little bit so I can figure out which. Abidan, the son of Gedaniah; of Dan, Ahijah, the son of Ammishaddai; I've already got that one. Of Asher, Hagiel, the son of Ochran; of Gad, Elisaph, the son of Duel; of Naphtali, Ahira, the son of Enan. Now, going through that list, one's missing. You come across it yet? The Levites. The Levites aren't going to be counted as men of war. Regardless of their age or anything like that, they already have a specific job that they're going to be required to do. And so they're not included in this, but we do have the additional ones of Ephraim and Manasseh that are added into this as far as being the children of Joseph. So still come up with the right kind of a number, but it's with the subtraction of Levi and then Ephraim and Manasseh being added to this. So all of these are going to be counted. All of these sons, so that they can figure out how many belong to Reuben all the way down to Naphtali, the last one that is mentioned here. So verse 16, these were the renowned of the congregation, princes of the tribes of their fathers, heads of thousands in Israel. So each one of these men is going to play a part in how these things are represented, making sure that they get the count accurate or not. One thing to point out is this first census, there's a larger number than there's going to be in the one in chapter 26. Because they're going to be in the wilderness, that generation, or this generation rather, is going to have to die off, and God will start with another one. And so these counts are going to be different. Even though some increase in number, others are going to decrease, and so the overall number will be less. 17. Moses and Aaron took these men, which are expressed by their names, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, by their polls. So this is what God commanded them to do when he said God spake to Moses. They've now passed it on to these individuals, stating exactly. They could no more change the age to be something different, and they could do the gender. God always has things done decently and in order. I believe it's 1 Corinthians 14:40. It said, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. Therefore, let all things be done decently and in order. So this is going to be a time-consuming thing, going through and counting all these, because they haven't done it yet. They didn't take time as they left Egypt to make this count, so now it's going to be made. So again, verse 19, as the Lord commanded Moses, so he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai. Why are these places called wilderness? You have the wilderness of Zin, the wilderness of Sinai, the wilderness of Paran. Why are all these places called wilderness? Okay, it's basically an uninhabited place. If there's just a few of the shepherds or something along that line. And so for the most part, there's no one there. And so here we find them in that place. So they have been commanded, 20 rather. The children of Reuben, Israel's oldest or eldest son, by their generations after their families, by the house of their fathers. Let me get back to it. Every male 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war, those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Reuben, were 46,500. So 46,500. Moves on to Simeon, following the same order. They were added up, let's see, verse 23. They were 59,300. Gad is next. Numbered them, verse 28, of the tribe of Gad, 45,650. You can continue to follow through all of these. Anyone know the grand total of all of these men that are added up? All right, 603,550. So over 500,000 as far as those that are able to fight out of these tribes. So it would seem to be quite a large number. And sometimes that gets them into trouble. Because it's still true, if someone or some country or some army thinks that they have the majority or the larger number of men fighting, that puts them in the best position. They're able then to be able to conquer because of sheer number. But God warns them about these things and why it is later on that censuses or polls are not to be taken, because they begin to trust in them rather than in God. And so while it's being done here to show where all of these tribes fit around the tabernacle, just imagine that huge number of people all the way around, how far out from it they must have gone as far as their encampment was concerned. What a huge undertaking it must be, that as we'll see about these, that as the cloud tells them when to get up and when to move to the next place, that it was something that had to be very, very organized as far as what they are going to do and how they get from one place to another. 44, as we get toward the end of the chapter. These are those that were numbered, which Moses and Aaron numbered, and the princes of Israel, 12 men, each one was for the house of his fathers. So were they all numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers, from 20 years old and upward. Here it's, repeated over and over again. So God was serious about what they were to do. Verse 46 gives us the number, 600,000, 3,550. 47 says the exemption. The Levites, after the tribe of their fathers, were not numbered among them, For the Lord had spoken unto Moses, saying, Only thou shalt number the tribe of Levite, thou shalt not number it, neither take the sum of them from the children of Israel, but thou shalt anoint the Levites over the tabernacle of testimony, over all the vessels thereof, over all the things that belong to it. They shall bear the tabernacle and the vessels thereof. They shall minister unto it, and shall encamp round about the tabernacle. When it sits forward, the Levites take it down. The tabernacle is pitched, the Levites set it up. The stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. It's not their job. They're not the ones responsible for it. Verse 52 is an introduction to the next chapter when it says, The children of Israel shall pitch their tents, every man by his own camp, and every man by his own standard, throughout their host. What's a standard? Okay, it's their banner or the flag that represents them. Some probably take it from Genesis chapter 49 as Jacob is pronouncing all these blessings upon them, such as Judah being a lion, that maybe that's what was depicted on their standard. But all of these tribes had something individual say, this is where you belong. If you're of Simeon, you can't go and live somewhere else. You have to stay in your designated area, and you can't be found living anywhere else. So the importance of this standard. 53, the Levites shall pitch round about the tabernacle of testimony, that there be no wrath upon the congregation of the children of Israel. Levites shall keep the charge of the tabernacle of testimony, and the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so did they. Jumping ahead a little bit, when we think about the book of Judges, what do we see happening over and over again in the book of Judges? There's a cycle that usually they follow. To begin with, the Israelites say, we're going to do what God says. Next thing, they begin to murmur and complain, and they begin to follow other gods. Third, God sends a foreign nation to conquer them and to rule over them for a while. Fourth, they get tired of that and decide it was better for us when we were serving God, so they repent and come back to God through the use of a judge that God provides as far as freeing them from that captivity. That cycle goes over and over and over again. But it's not anything new. As this chapter concludes, it says they're going to do what God says. But the sad thing is, through the book of Numbers, we see a big change. Just like in the book of Judges, they get tired of doing what God says. They don't believe that they can do what He says, and they disobey. We find this in Hebrews chapter 3 as far as listening to God. Find it in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 where they failed to live for God and were punished. And so nothing new is going to happen here. How many people then were numbered? 600? 603,550. We said at the end there about the standard or the banner or the flag introduces chapter 2, and it does. The Lord spake unto Moses unto Aaron, saying, Every man of the children of Israel shall pitch by his own standard with the ensign of their father's house. Far off about the tabernacle of the congregation shall they pitch. Again, this flag, this ensign, gives them the ability to say, here's where we're supposed to be. They weren't able to make their own flag up or to find out, well, I'd rather be over there because that's got more shade, or, you know, we're closer to the water if we stay there, and so we don't have to walk so far to get water. God has already designated for each one of these tribes the place where they were to encamp around about. 3 on the east, 3 north, 3 south, 3 west, as far as the direction that they were to be found. Beginning at verse 3, he goes through and he shows this as far as where these people are going to be and how many of them are there. Not necessary for us to go through all of these, but he says toward the rising of the sun. So which direction is the rising of the sun? To the east. Picks it out because that's where the opening to the tabernacle is. That's where the majority of the Levites, Moses and Aaron, would be staying. And then so those that are going to be outside of that area. This is basically what happens in chapter 2. It gives a lot of facts and information about these people. Any comments or questions that you might have about chapter 2 before we move on? Because again, it's just saying here's all the different tribes, here's the area in which they're going to live, and goes back through and counts the numbers of these individuals also. Sure, it would be. Right. It definitely would be true because the entrance would be on the east side to the tabernacle. Suppose anybody ever complained, well, I live all the way on the west end of it. Why can't I move closer so I can get there easier? So that would definitely be true that we don't have the ability to change what God's commands are in the New Testament for us any more than they could change them in the Old Testament for matters of convenience sake alone. So definitely true. So it ends with this statement, they pitched by their standards, so they set forth every one of their families according to their father, the house of their fathers. Chapter 3. He then moves to the generations of Aaron and Moses in the day of the Lord. Just to bring out, as we move through the book of Numbers, we're going to see Miriam, then Aaron, and then Moses die. And so that leadership, as far as Miriam would have been to the women, as we see in Exodus 15, Aaron being the high priest, and then ultimately Moses also not going to live to make it to the promised land. Those that they might have looked up to or thought that they should follow are going to be gone. So now that he's gone through the others, he now begins with the Levites, verse 2. These are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Now, what about Nadab and Abihu? Okay. All right, back to Leviticus chapter 10. They're still mentioned here because they were the firstborn as far as Nadab and then Abihu, but because of the strange fire or incense that they brought, they were killed. So Eleazar and Ithamar, these are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priest which were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest office. How were just to bring it up, how were the priests under the book of Leviticus, how were they consecrated or how were they anointed? What was done to them? Blood was applied to their right ear, thumb, and their right toe. So you folks that are left-handed, you were left out. That's how they were shown to be. They did do the ceremonial washing and other things. Verse 4, Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. They had no children, so Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office in the sight of Aaron their father. Normally it would go from the high priest as far as to Aaron to that firstborn, then from his to his firstborn and on down the list. And so there had to be a change in that because of the presumptuous sin Going to what Jeremy said, maybe they thought it was easier to bring incense or that fire from their own home rather than to have it do it the way God said. So they shall keep the charge and the charge of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of the congregation to do the service of the tabernacle. Keep all the instruments of the tabernacle of the congregation, the charge of the children of Israel to do the service of the tabernacle. And thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron and his sons. They are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. So in a sense, the Levites became the dedicated ones rather than everyone's firstborn son, as far as the way that it was working. So 10, appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall wait upon their priest office, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. Already have heard this as far as that goes. So what would who would a stranger be? Okay. We sometimes use it in the general sense that it's the person who is outside of the Jewish nation, but here it would be outside of the Levites, then anyone else as well that could not assume the right or the privilege that Aaron and his sons had as far as ministering unto the people. All right. All right. Not that it would be the same in war as far as bloodshed is concerned. The Levites saw their fill probably of bloodshed as far as from the animals that they would have to kill and the sacrifices that would have to be made on behalf of themselves and the people. 13 talks about the firstborn, just as he did with the ones in Egypt. In this section, at least in the beginning of Numbers, he continues to make reference back to what you had to, or what they had to endure and what they went through in Egypt, to always remind them that they're no longer there, that they've been brought forth out of that, but to remember how it was when they were there. So now the numbering, verse 15, the children of Levi after the house of their fathers, the families, every male from a month old and upward. When did they start the numbering for the others? 20 years old and up. So now it's gotten all the way to being a baby. 1 month old and upward shalt thou number them. So he was numbered according to the word of the Lord. Excuse me. As he was commanded, these are the sons of Levi by their names. So you have Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And as division is made up, each one of these, and then all of their family, they all had different aspects within the tabernacle as far as what they were to carry and what they were to do. So begins in verse 18 of Gershon, and then 19 Kohath, 20 to Merari. And we think some of the names now are hard to pronounce, but some of them were very hard back then to pronounce also. So got all three of these. 22, those that were numbered of them according to the number of males from a month old and upward, those that were numbered even of them 7,500. And that is each of the different sons as they are going through. 23 then moves to the Gershonites and exactly where they're going to pitch as far as westward it says. Then the chief, all of those, Eliasaph, and on down through the names. So then he tells them all the things that they're going to be responsible for. They have the coverings, they have the hangings, the curtains, and so they are given something specific to do as far as each one of them. 27 then begins with Kohath. Let's see how far down it is to Merari. 33, okay? So each one of them is being given something to do, and not to leave out any one, they go through and they list all of these people who are in charge of various things. We might say, well, which job is more important? Is it people who carry the badger skins to keep the water from getting into it? What about the people who take care of all the sockets and the pins? What about them? Well, as normal in most all of these things, every part of it is important because it all fits together and it all works together for the accomplishment of putting this huge building tent together. And so each one of these has an important job to do. If one decides he's not going to show up, it would probably mean that the rest of it can't be done right then either. Verse 40. The Lord said unto Moses, number all the firstborn of the males of the children of Israel, month old and upward, and take the number of their names, and thou shalt take the Levites for me. I am the Lord. Instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, the cattle of the Levites, instead of all the firstlings among the cattle of the children of Israel. So Moses numbered, as the Lord commanded, firstborn among all the children of Israel, all the firstborn males, the number of the names from a month old and upward. Those that were numbered, 22,213. This is being done because there's now going to be a sense of redemption that takes place. Verse 48, for those that are to be redeemed, 213, firstborn of the children of Israel. So all of these firstborn, since they're not going to serve as the Levites do, there is going to be this redemption that takes place. As you see down in verse 47, and thou shalt take 5 shekels apiece by the pole after the shekel of the sanctuary. Thou shalt take them. The shekel is 20 gerahs. Thou shalt give them money wherewith the odd number of them is to be redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons. Now, we might come up with the question, why does God do it this way? Why does he say these different figures and all? Well, I guess the easiest answer was just above where it says, I am the Lord, that however he wants it done and however he wants this accomplished. So 49, Moses does as God says, and he takes the redemption money over of them all that were over and above the redeemed by the Levites. So however many Levites you had, then however many firstborn you had, you'd weigh that number out, and whatever was more than, that's where the redemption came in. The final verse, Moses gave the money of them that were redeemed unto Aaron to his sons according to the word of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. So still accomplishing and doing exactly what God says. Once more, it's the next chapter. Any comments on the previous chapter? Yes, Robert. Right. Right. It could be definitely stated that way. The Levites were the entire, but then you had Aaron, his sons, then Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, all divided up into the different work that they were to do. And money, the redemption that was taken here, was used to support these individuals as portions of some of the offerings that we saw back in Leviticus 1 through 6. And so I guess one thing even if it's regarding deacons and saying, they take care of physical aspects, but really that physical work aids in the spiritual being done. So I don't know that you can say one's to the other and not. Yes, sir. Uh, I think it's because you have Aaron being the high priest, and then as we see through each one of the firstborn down through that, and so with the death of Nadab and Abihu, you have to have some working arrangements so that if something happens to one of them, because it was physically very demanding of who exactly could be a priest, as far as, you couldn't have any deformities, things of that nature, and so I'm sure that it was probably worked out so that you could have someone next in line to come along. Right.
I think this redemption, which you see here, is an interesting snapshot of God's justice, the fairness, the fact that because God is perfect, the accounts have to be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
It tends toward, leans toward you thinking about Christ's sacrifice and what that means as far as how much value there was to that, and the accounts could be balanced, that we therefore have salvation and have that redemption.
Right. And it's always proportional as far as what's expected of us today. We don't judge our giving by someone else. It's as we've been prospered. And so as you see these individuals who are removed out of the sense of being firstborn and therefore should have been the ones doing certain special things to the tribe of Levi, because they were the ones who chose to side with God beforehand. That it's always works out that no one's expected to do more than they're able to, even in the matter of the redemption. Jeremy has gotten up, so we don't have a whole lot of time as far as chapter 4 goes, but we'll get a start into it. Once more, as we've seen before, the chapter begins. The Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi, their families of the fathers, 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. So now getting more into specifics as far as exactly once more what they are going to do and what's required of them. They are going to handle those things that are described here as being the holy things, so that when the camp setteth forward, that is God's presence, that cloud moves forward, and then they know that it's a sign. We've got to get everything packed up and ready to go. As far as the statement about, maybe wishing you had a different job, imagine all of these pieces of furniture that are overlaid with gold, how heavy they would be, not just made out of wood, but then to have the additional weight of the gold that's there. The Ark of the Covenant. Someone may say, well, that's got to weigh a whole lot more than the candlestick does, so why do I have to carry it? But we'll see that before long that there are enough priests that they begin to work in courses, or that is shift work, that not all of them are required at one time. And so some of them come and do their shift, like we see in Luke chapter 1 with John the Baptist's father, after the order of. So when the camp setteth forward, verse 5, Aaron and his sons, they shall take down the covering of the ark of the testimony with it, put thereof the covering of the badger skins, they shall spread over a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof. So everything's being packed up. If you are someone who likes to go camping, if you use a tent, or even if you go camping in an RV or something, usually by the time you get to the end of it, you're ready to say, we'll just throw everything in and we'll sort it out later. But they have an organization and they have a way that they have to keep everything done so that when it comes time to stop, it all comes back out in a certain way and they're able to get it back up again. And so there's all this order that's involved in the way that things are being done. Yes. Right.
That this was their possession, and that they're taking care of it in the closing when they took it down and then so that they could then in orderly fashion put it back up to the exact same way.
definitely was, because as we see this tabernacle described a number of times, we've seen it as the witness. It's tabernacle of God's house or his presence. And so it was that connection spiritually with God at this time. Anything else on chapter 4? We got to this part, Robert? Right. That's right. They were the ones who had the daily use of, as far as the oil for the light, the Sabbath for the table of showbread and other things. Certainly would be. All right. We'll pick up somewhere close to there.